Scottish Football Social Club is brought to you by McBookie.com. Take a lookie at McBookie today.
Year and welcome along to the Scottish Football Social Club on Premier Sports, live on YouTube, on X, maybe on the TV if you're watching one of the repeats, and all in association with McBookie. It is a new year, but it's the same old pundits. We tried our best to shift these two, but they just wouldn't shift. And on that note, it's a warm welcome back to Alan Hutton and Michael Stewart. Michael, New Year resolutions, everyone always talks about this, but I can only assume yours, number one in 2025, is just to be more concise and to be nicer to people.
I'd find it difficult to do that, Dal, since I'm not sure you could be any nicer.
Oh, that's what he thinks, Al. And I assume yours, Al, surely is no more cooking for more than 10 people at once.
Yeah, I've done my bit now. So the pin is hung up until next year. Well, next Christmas, should I say.
Good. Right, let's get right into it, because just a week ago, Alan, you were beside yourself on Rangers and their form because they'd taken 1 point out of 6 last time we spoke over their 2 festive fixtures. And now, since that, a really good win against Celtic. They were excellent at Ibrox. 2-0 up at Easter Road, and then they throw the points away. How are you now assessing this Rangers team under Philip Clemmell?
An emotional roller coaster. Would that kind of sum it up in a good way, I suppose? I mean, I think the big question after the Celtic game, which was an unbelievable performance, was can they go back up against the Hibs team that are looking really strong, playing well. It's always a difficult game there. In the first 20 minutes, I'm thinking, this is brilliant. I mean, they're really going for it here. But to me, they still look nervous. I mean, that's what it all comes down to. I think defensively, they looked a little bit vulnerable at times. I liked all the goals, like you see here, driving to the byline, cutting back. He's pushing all the defenders back. And Igaman's very good at that, knowing what's around him, what space is there. Here again, it's the same kind of thing. I know Bayrami cuts back in, but look at Igaman. Gets in between the midfielders and the defence. Another really good goal. But Hibs came back into it, and they obviously felt or smelt the weakness within Rangers. There's a great touch here by Bashiri, just to lay it down. And what an outstanding finish from Boyle, who's on great form at this moment in time. And I think they just felt it. This is the big talking point for Clement, for a lot of people, not necessarily Michael, but I first seen it in real time, and I thought instantly, that's penalty. I said, very clumsy. It's a penalty. The more I see it, yes, as I come together, I understand why people can see both sides. I still believe it is a penalty. I mean, if that was Rangers claiming for that, they'd be desperate for it. But anyway, after that, I thought Hibs really had the momentum, and they were going to be the team to go on and score. They were really unlucky, but look, Igaman pops up again with a great finish. But Hibs, they've got this character recently that they just kind of never say die and came back into it. They were well worth it, and Rangers were unlucky at the end. But such a roller coaster at this moment in time, and they were up against a good team. So
what a game of football!
It was
brilliant.
A brilliant game of football, Michael, and I think it also says a lot about Hibs at the moment. The way they've turned things around, the fact that 2-0 down, they don't crumble, even going down 3-2 late in the day, finding a way back into it.
Absolutely, it was outstanding from Hibs to be able to come back, because, as Alan said, the opening stages of the game, it just looked like Rangers were going to blow them away. It looked like they just picked up from where they left off at Ibrox against Celtic. And I mean, 6 weeks ago, if that had happened, I don't see how Hibs come back from it and how they have transformed themselves. And ironically, well, not ironically, but I think it's quite appropriate that it was the 3-3 game against Aberdeen where things really turned around. And I think that 3-3 game there against Rangers really sort of epitomised everything that they have now shown in that last sort of 6 or 7 weeks. Outstanding from Rangers at the outset, incredible from Hibs to be able to come back, and just an incredibly enjoyable game to watch. Brilliant game of football between the two good sides. But I think it highlights the weaknesses of both teams as well, and the strengths. It's no great surprise, because if you look at the injury problems Rangers have got defensively, it was there for all to see. It's by a stretch nowhere near their strongest defensive setup, and I think it showed at times, like Alan was talking about there. And for Hibs, a great run of form they're on, but I don't think anybody at the club in a senior management capacity is allowing that run to sort of kid themselves on in terms of recognising what needs to be done to move them forward.
What needs to be done?
Well, they need to get, and I said this, I think, last week, they need to strengthen defensively. They need, they've got, and, obviously there's been a lot of chat about Xander Clark being looked at, and that would be a very sensible addition for Hibs. Whether it ever would happen or not, I don't know. But defensively, so goalkeeper and centre halves, that's where they need to start first and foremost to strengthen the team. There are other areas, of course, but you're looking at January, that's where I'd be looking to get strength.
As for Rangers, Al, I mean, Michael's right, defensive concerns. They play another away game Thursday, Dundee this time, and you saw the injuries happening during the game. Sterling coming off, Leon King coming on, and then Prooper, I believe, suspended for the game as well. So goodness knows who starts on
Maybe I'll
Thursday.
get a call.
I was going to say, you've still got some boots there because you might get the call. I mean, defensive concerns, but more than that, I think, anyway, when you have a lead like that off the back of the Celtic game, as you mentioned, when you have a lead late in the day as well, there has to be something about a team like Rangers that they're expected to hit the heights. Surely the mental strength in those players to see it through. Why does it keep on happening, Al, away from home?
I have no idea. I mean, what is it? 3 wins out of 10 away from home. That's the shocking bit about it all, that they struggle away from. I don't know what it is. Can't quite put my finger on it. I mean, we're talking about the weaknesses that they have defensively and everybody that they're going to be missing moving forward. But at Ibrox, that was the same defence. And Celtic had one shot on target, I think it was, up against an informed Kuhn, Maeda, who's lightning quick, as we know, wants to run in behind, and Kyogo. So if you can do it there, surely you can go and do it a few days later against Hibs. And I know they're a good team, but at times, especially that second half, they were all over the shop. And I don't know if they're just kind of missing that leader to say, right, look, come in, don't fly forward. We've got a lead. Let's hold it here. Be resolute, be tight. I just don't think they've got that. They're all very gung-ho. Jeffrey's going forward. Yilmaz is going forward. People are caught out of position, and it's not helping. So, look, the away form is a huge worry for me moving forward.
I was just going to say, in hindsight, I think when you look at the Celtic game, the dynamics are different. Celtic are always going to look to build from the back, which allows Rangers, and they did it very well, to be aggressive higher up the park, which actually relieved a lot of pressure off the defence. Whereas Hibs, at the moment, the way they're playing, they'll look to build it at times, and Rangers were still very good at trying to shut that down. But they are a lot quicker at getting that ball forward. They're quite happy to just not thump it up the park, but they're quite happy to play longer balls quicker to get into the final third, which invariably is then posing questions of that Rangers defence quicker. Rather than as a defensive unit, Rangers were almost able to defend from the front a lot easier at Ibrox, whereas at Easter Road, just the way that Hibs is set up, it meant that the defensive part of the team was being posed more questions quicker. And I think, coupled with the psychology of going away from home, they're not totally confident at the moment. I think that, all played its part in the end.
Look, the way teams set up against them, Alan, we've mentioned this a few times, it seems to help Rangers when teams do have a go at them as well, because they've played well against those sides in Europe as well who have had a real go at Rangers. Rangers seem to play well in the counter-attack at times, breaking up play and going from there. Overall, on Philippe Clement, where do you now stand? Because it feels a bit like he's a cat with nine. Well, it feels a bit like he's a cat with 9 lives. Every time you think he's on the brink, he gets a result. But then they don't have that consistency that's required, surely at a club like Rangers, for these questions not to keep being asked.
They'll always be asked, because we know when you're the manager of Rangers, if you're not performing, you're not winning week in, week out, that it's always going to be there. It's never going to leave. I just think he'll be there for long term, unless there's a nightmare in terms of a shocker of a run. I think they've decided that this rinse and repeat, as we've spoke about before, has to stop at some stage. and they feel that this
What's
is
a
the guy
shocker
for
of a
it.
run though, Al? 12 points out of 30 away from home in the
I
league.
know that
13
is, but I
points
mean,
behind
if
Celtic.
they go on a run where they're I don't know, if they lose 4 in a row or whatever, maybe that's it. It's going to be difficult after that. I just feel that they believe in Clement. He's got the January window. He says it's going to take longer. He'll have the summer window. And I think he will still be there to build something. It was never going to happen overnight. It wasn't short term. They're trying to do it long term. So if that's the case and that's what they're looking at, you have to give them the time to do it. And I know it's a result business.
He's had big opportunities as well since he's been at the football club. If you think about, there was an upturn in fortunes when he first took over. They were in a position potentially to win the league last season, Al, and certainly win a cup, and they've come up short many times. So it's not like he's just walked in the door. And in fact, if you compare it to previous Rangers managers, the gap at the top is pretty significant. So it looks like he's getting more leeway than some that have come before him. Is that what you're saying? And does he deserve it? If that's the case.
Just purring.
Well, does he deserve it?
Because
I think at some stage it has to change.
I feel for you because I get the feeling that Darryl is leading you here.
No, but listen, Michael, I understand.
I'm giving the facts because
I do understand.
Facts at the moment, the position in the league, the fact that they seem to produce big performances against some top teams at times.
But that's the problem. They can't repeat it constantly, and that's what you have to be. If you want to be like Celtic and win leagues and win trophies, you have to be consistent, and that they're not there yet. I think we're seeing what they're capable of, but unfortunately, they can't do it every single week, week in, week out. Or if they don't play to the level, i.e. when they played Motherwell or St Mirren or whatever, find a way to grind out a result. That's the thing that they can't do. And whether it's because he doesn't have the experience that he needs or whatever it may be, but at some stage I feel that they can't just keep getting rid of managers. They can't just keep bringing in different players. It has to change. And I think they've pinned their hopes on Clement and hopefully giving him the time that he can turn it around. So we are seeing bright sparks or periods of time where he has done well, but then there's a drop-off. So he needs to make that squad more consistent on a regular basis.
Darryl, you saw the comment at the end. Obviously, the new contract at the start of the season, there is a significant payoff. What, Michael? I mean, obviously, you were smiling away there, but genuinely, do you think this guy's the caliber of a top Rangers manager?
I was going to pose the question, and correct me if I'm wrong. Was Steven Gerrard's opening period at Rangers not comparable with Pedro Caixinha?
It wasn't great.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head. I think you're probably right, but I would put a slight caveat in on that.
That he won the league?
Well, no. I think from memory, because I remember broadcasting at the time, from memory, there was a lot of talk, would Steven Gerrard even want the Rangers job? Because I think they just lost, was it 4 and 5 or even 6 maybe against Celtic consecutively? Because they were a million miles away. Yep. So I think there was a significant difference in those. I know what you're saying, but I think there is a significant difference. You've got to judge Philippe Clement on the Rangers team that he's inherited. And yes, there's a lot of people said that maybe some of the players weren't good enough and money had been wasted. You've got to judge him on what he's got now, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm just saying that I think everybody recognises that Rangers as a club are quite a distance away from Celtic. They admit that themselves in regards to what they're capable of doing in the transfer market. They're having to try and lower the wage bill, and they're trying to close a gap. It's not an easy task. So when you ask the question, is Philippe Clement, I can't remember verbatim what you said, but
is he the caliber of a potentially top Rangers manager? Do you think he's a good enough manager to lead the club to success?
But then what you're doing there is you're comparing things with a different period when the barometer of success was different as well. I think Rangers are in a period of having to recalibrate, and you could argue that Philippe Clement isn't of the standard of previous managers, but it's a difficult situation for everybody that's involved in Rangers. The fans' expectation is, very high, but I think the reality is that the club are not on a level playing field with Celtic. Now, a better question would be, is Philippe Clement capable of bridging that gap? And I would say I'm unsure. I'm unsure. It
Alan,
comes back to what you said about the cat
Yeah.
with 9 lives. There are certain periods, especially when he first came in, it looked like he was going to blow it away and win the league from an improbable position. Then there's been, the start of this season where it's been patchy. Stuff's been good. The results after Aberdeen domestically were good up until a couple of weeks ago. Now he comes back with the Celtic result. Then he's followed it up with the Hibs result. I think you could make a strong case either way that Philippe Clement needs to go and they need to bring somebody else in, or you could make a strong defence of him and say he needs more time. So that's why Patrick Stewart gets paid the big bucks to make big decisions.
Correct, he does. So look, we've got to move on in a second. So I think the final question is, look, as Michael has rightly said, and that's what I think I was trying to get at, Michael. I think the question really is, Alan, is he the right man for the job now?
I think so right now. I would stick with him, if I'm honest, because I just think everything that's happened in the past, and look, I know people are going back to Beale and different things, and Gerrard, arguably, they probably had stronger squads, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. But I think something like this, a job this big, it's going to take time to turn it around. They're starting to get the stability, backroom staff and everything that they want to go in that direction, so which is going to help. But this isn't going to fix itself overnight. And you can't keep changing managers just when something goes wrong. So they need to stick with somebody. So I believe they should stick with him.
Okay. Let's move on. There was all eyes, I guess, on Celtic Park as well, Michael, to see how Celtic responded after the Old Firm defeat. And they responded in style. And again, it felt a little bit like watching this game. They were in third gear at times and they could have gone higher. Or maybe right now they've not got to those top gears in recent matches. But it was pretty comfortable in the end, wasn't it, against St Mirren?
Oh, yeah. I think you sum it up pretty well there, Darryl. Congratulations, finally.
Listen,
explain something.
If you keep doing the show, Michael, eventually you get one right. I mean, that's like the story of your broadcasting career.
Yeah. Look, I said a couple of weeks ago that the slight danger for Celtic is that with the big Champions League games coming up, that they're going along fine. They're going along okay. But it's just question mark lingering over, are they going to be able to kick up a level again for these big European games, which are really, massive, because a lot of the perceived success will be determined on how they get on in these games. Certainly talking about Saturday, Sunday, forgetting it was just yesterday against St Mirren. It was good. It's all there. Good, quick play, which you have to do against teams like St Mirren, who are difficult to break down. Good deliveries from the wide areas, and just generally, Celtic have got a really good rhythm about them. They've got a good flow, and I don't think you could be expecting much more from them in terms of comfortable victory, 3 goals, clean sheet. Things are going along fine, with the slight caveat of you wouldn't say they're going into the European games as fluently as they were at the start of the season. No,
definitely not. But that first goal, the pace, the way the ball was moved forward so quickly, that felt, Alan, watching on, that was more like the Celtic of maybe a month ago, if you like. And it took a bit of time in the game for them to find their feet. I was watching the match, did take a bit of time, maybe understandable after what happened at Ibrox.
Yeah, I think so. It was something I was probably a little bit fearful of when they went to Ibrox, that knowing that they can go up a gear and they can play with that sort of pace. I mean, Kuhn's been outstanding this season. I mean, I don't know what Michael thinks on that, but I think he's been brilliant. Player. And he showed it. And I know Brendan Rodgers was buzzing over the third goal and the way they played and how quickly they went from obviously back to front through Schmeichel, but there was a mistake from the goalkeeper. But I think overall, as Michael said, it was a fairly comfortable day for them. It was St Mirren. It was always going to be a tough task. Since the Rangers game, they've had a little bit of a dip themselves. But yeah, as comfortable as it can get for Celtic. But they're going to be challenged in bigger games that are coming up.
There was also, I think, all eyes as well on the team selection, Michael, the knock-on effect of the defeat at Ibrox. I suppose we all expected Trusty to be back in for Scales, because Liam Scales didn't have a good day, did he, against Rangers? And then also in midfield, which we often talk about, it was McCowan and Engels back in. Hatate also, it doesn't seem like he's found his very best form of late. So, I mean, it's easy to say now, but it didn't look like maybe Brendan got it right at Ibrox. Obviously he didn't. It was a 3-0 defeat, but the whole team were a bit off it. But those changes against St Mirren were expected, weren't they? And do you think those players I've just mentioned are going to get a bit more of a run in the team now, consistently again?
Well, I mean, there's competition for places, especially in the middle of the park. The Trusty Scales one, you can talk about, after the event, whether things were right or wrong. I think there was a clear thinking behind what he did. He did it, in the second half in the Premier Sports Cup final. He took Trusty off and he put Scales on for the distinct reason that he feels Scales was better in possession, being able to step in and play, the ball and build the game better. But Rangers were very, very good at shutting that down, and it really disrupted Liam Scales. And you're right, he didn't have one of his better days, but look, that can happen at times. It's the middle of the park is the interesting one for me, because I've harped on about it enough. I'm picking my team strongest. I'd be having Luke McCowan in it. I really like him. I think he's got a bit of everything. If you're wanting to play as one of those number 8s, he is great energy, picks up good positions, sees a pass, got an eye for a goal. So yeah, I would like to think that he would get a bit more of a run of games, but there's maybe something else that Brendan sees in training or whatever that is perhaps sort of angling him towards something else. But certainly with Luke McCowan, I'd be hopeful that he gets a wee bit more game time. Yeah.
Stacey Devlin there with just a point about wanting another striker. Because obviously Kyogo, I mean, he still scores some unbelievable goals, but maybe he's been just slightly off it at times.
Well, Darryl,
Either struggling, Stacey Devlin saying there, Maeda played as a centre forward earlier in the season. He's an option.
But the thing at the cup final was we were watching the game and we were talking about this in terms of the way obviously Rangers had played against Celtic, and obviously looking to build the game a lot through midfield. Sometimes, and I don't mean hitting a longer ball, a pass can get whipped into the striker. So you're playing past the midfield, and the midfield can then go and play off of the striker. But that's not something that Kyogo does. Ida does it a lot more, but certainly Kyogo doesn't do that. And it doesn't even have to be coming from centre halves, coming from fullbacks as well. Alan will tell you, where you can whip one into the strikers, and you get, back in the day, you'd get another striker run across the face of the striker. Now you could get the midfield run across. It just stretches the game a little bit, and it relieves a little bit of that pressure. But Celtic don't play that way very often.
That's the thing. I don't think Brendan Rodgers likes it.
And Ida is the one that would perhaps be better fitted to doing that, because Kyogo doesn't play like that. He doesn't look for it.
Michael, as well, you need to mix it up. Like, I know Brendan Rodgers, how he wants to play, and on the ideal day, everything's perfect and it goes well, you win and it looks amazing. But you're right, see certain games, you need to mix it up. And that was one of my things. Like, as a fullback, if nothing was on, like you're saying, you're whipping it up into the striker's feet. He's holding it up. He's creating space for then your midfielders, your McCowans, your whoever it may be, running on and helping out. It just, sometimes you switch it up and it works for you. They don't really like to play that way, that's all.
Also, I think, just go back to Stacey's point there, I don't know if you agree or not, Michael, they need another option, but to get one now, it would have to be someone who would play ahead of Kyogo, Ida, maybe even Maeda as an option. That's going to be very hard to find now in January.
Yeah, it would, and it would cost a lot of money. A lot of money. When you think about the money that's already been spent on Ida, it would certainly be asking a lot of the recruitment team to be able to find somebody in January that's not going to be costing the earth. So perhaps it's something that they'll be looking at in the summer. But even then, I think it's you're carrying two what you would class as top strikers, guys that can lead the line and score loads of goals. I think it'd be very difficult when you're playing with one striker to carry three of them.
How do you keep them happy?
No,
exactly.
I mean, you mentioned Dida. You bring him in for what, 9 million? You get Kyogo. I think the bar's set that high. I mean, I know everybody's looking for the perfect striker and how much will it cost, but if I'm a number 9 and at that football club, I mean, how do you keep all the guys happy? You can't. It's impossible, because Dida probably thinks in his mind at this moment in time, I don't get enough minutes. I want to play more.
Yeah.
So.
Final one on Celtic, then we're going to move on again. But Kieran Tierney, you probably heard the interview after the game by Brendan Rodgers. There were chants. It looks like the deal is getting closer, Michael. I think one thing, I said a couple of things about Kieran Tierney last week in the show. One thing that I think we have to make clear is that, look, Kieran Tierney, he's been on record. I've spoken to him before. I think it was pretty clear from chatting to Kieran. He didn't really want to leave Celtic first time round. A massive bid came in for him. And at the time, you know, the model of the football club, £25 million. They wanted to accept that bid. Kieran loves the club. You can hear from the fans already that he'd be welcomed back. So it does look, Michael, like it's getting a bit closer. Can you understand what Brendan Rodgers was saying, though, about the fans singing his name? And would it be disrespectful to Greg Taylor, who's in contract limbo at the moment? Or do you think those fans should just batter on and sing any name they want?
I mean, look, I think what it shows you is that Brendan Rodgers has got a hell of a lot of respect and time for Greg Taylor, because it's not the first time that he's, come out batting for him, saying, look, they need to get a new contract sorted for him. So that's the first thing. The second thing, having a go at the fans for cheering for Kieran, that's a tough one, because, and Brendan mentioned it himself, obviously, the history that Kieran has got at the club, the status he has, the connection he's got. Look, football's an emotive sport. Fans get caught up in it. That's what it is. Fans are excited by it. And you talk about trying to carry 3 strikers and how improbable and difficult that would be. I can't help but think it falls into the same category with 2 fullbacks. Now, Kieran Tierney coming back as a marquee signing and everything else that goes with it, how does that impact Greg Taylor? Never mind in terms of just the contract negotiations here. Psychologically, he's the number one. He's the number one. But, he's potentially got somebody coming in that he knows.
But there's been a contract on the table for a while, by all accounts.
Yeah, I know, but even now then, how does that affect Greg Taylor's psychology, thinking, well, do I sign it? He's probably looking for, I would imagine, and I'm just, surmising here, he's looking for a bigger deal because he feels like he's the established left back that the manager really likes. The club are maybe thinking a little bit different in terms of obviously the numbers here. And now he hears and looks that like this superstar hero is perhaps coming back in his position. I'd feel for him, which is obviously what Brendan Rodgers was saying.
One thing though, Alan, just on Kieran Tierney, I mean, he had awful injury problems. Such a shame for him. Such a talented footballer, and it's been hard for him to deal with. And he's lost so many top opportunities. Playing at the highest level with Arsenal because of those injuries, and Scotland as well. If you remember, you would imagine that his minutes, if he did come back, would have to be managed for a while. So, don't you need another excellent left back option? Regardless, isn't that the kind of position you could have 2 top players in?
Yeah, look. Are you going to accept that though? Would you?
No, absolutely not. No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. I'd be raging. See, if I'm Greg Taylor right now and this is the news, I am fuming. As simple as that. I'd actually probably walk in and want and demand to know what's happening, if I was honest, because I was a bit fiery that way and I just want to know where I stand within the club. But the whole situation. I can't. I would bust the door down and I would demand to know exactly what was going on and where everything was. My contract, is he coming? Is he in front of me if he comes? Am I playing? I would want to know everything. It's just the way I was.
Those are fair questions to ask though, right?
Aye, of course.
Why not at the moment ask those questions?
Well, you look at how well Taylor's played, what he's won for the club, but at the back of his mind, he'll know that if Tierney comes and he's fit, he'll play. He'll know. You just know as a player, when somebody like that comes in, they're going to play. So I do feel for him. But I genuinely thought Tierney would go down there. He had all the ability. He could have been the Arsenal captain and he could have been there for years.
Agreed.
Unfortunately, it didn't work out. A huge opportunity's come for him. The question mark is, can you keep him fit? He's only, 27? If they can, it's an outstanding signing. But you're right, you need competition, you need another player that's going to be there. But is Taylor willing to take a back seat to stay there? That's the big question.
I think, by the way, the respect that Kieran Tierney is still getting from the Arsenal fans at the moment, Michael, says it all about even the way he's been received down south and the effort he's given to the football club. We've got to move on. We'll see what happens with Kieran Tierney. Maybe next week we'll talk about back at Celtic. Who knows if it will happen by then. Michael, did you enjoy your Sunday afternoon at Fir Park?
Yeah, loved it. Loved it. I'm not sure that Jimmy Tilleen loved it, though.
No. It's a tough spell for Jimmy Tilleen in Aberdeen. Winless in 10. But just from Motherwell's point of view, and I know there's a red card in the game, but from Motherwell's point of view, they asserted themselves really well in the football match. And they've got a lot of talented players, and they can produce results like this on any given day at the moment.
Yep, absolutely.
Even with the players out injured.
Yeah, totally. You talk about talented players. I've harped on about it enough with Motherwell every time I've watched them, and then when I've seen from afar, I've never quite understood how Maswanisi was not like one of the first names on the team sheet. And yesterday was a game where he was starting. And he really, for me, showed, all the reasons why he is such a threat, such a real dangerous threat. Aberdeen started brightly, but because of the position they find themselves in, if you don't convert, get your noses in front, you can just tell everything's always just on a knife's edge. And this was just another one of those moments that on a knife's edge, frustration, and then things don't go your way. Never going to get overturned. But you've got a little bit of sympathy for Aberdeen when they're in that position. Defensively, the 2 goals, when you look at them, Angus MacDonald and Jack McKenzie, the 2 of them down the left-hand side, 6s and 7s, and Motherwell ruthlessly exposed them for both goals in particular. There is no easy way out of it for Jimmy Tilleen. No easy way out of it. But they're now, talk about Hibs sitting top of the form table in the league. Aberdeen are sitting comfortably at the bottom and have been for a while. And that is a serious concern.
That's the question marks. Alan, you've seen them a couple of times up close and personal, haven't you, recently?
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's asking the same questions about why is it not quite happening. To me, watching on, it looks like there's some fine margins at the moment, but it also just looks like the team have lost a bit of tempo at times, a bit of zip about the play. Maybe it's the confidence of the players. I don't know, but is this
confidence won't help
around?
At this moment in time, I don't think so. I think against Dundee United, there was signs there that the confidence could possibly be creeping back, but I think they look very vulnerable. I mean, Motherwell set out their stall. They were very good at just playing the ball in behind McDonald, I thought, to get Maswanisi on the ball, and they looked nervous. They actually started, as Michael said, they started the game all right, and they done better in the second half. But you're already 2 goals down. So the start of the season, when I seen them, yes, they were getting a little bit of rub of the green. They were scoring late goals and different things, and it was all kind of falling their way. But they played, as you put it, with a zip. They were dying to press people. They got the ball out wide really quickly, overloads, taking people on, scoring the goals. Papa Gay made a big difference as well. Yeah. And I just feel at this moment in time, they look really vulnerable. And 5 defeats in a row now. And see if you look at the goals they've conceded. So it's 12 goals in those 5 games. So easy. Like the Kilmarnock game, balls into the box. Nobody going putting pressure on the crosser of the ball. Nobody putting pressure in the box. It's the little things that are slipping away. I don't know if they're feeling it or they're tired or the pressure that comes with winning every single week. I don't know, but there's something just missing.
The other thing is
the key moments as well, Michael. The big moments in games that were going for them earlier in the season. At the moment, they're not going away. Goals like the Ross County goal against them a few days ago, Akil Wright, they weren't flying in earlier this season.
No, not at all. But like you mentioned it there, it's a game of fine margins, and Hutz is talking about whether just the psychology of it all. But, I mean, these are all major contributing factors. And the big thing as well is, see early on, and we were up at Pittodrie for the reverse fixture of the game at Tannadice just a couple of days ago when Dundee United went up there. And you really got a sense at that point, I mean, the stadium was electric. The atmosphere was incredible. All of that played a part. There was an air of invincibility almost. And the opposition almost felt it as well. It was almost like, can I beat them? And, it was almost like a force of nature that Aberdeen were going to score at one point. And once that disappears, it's quite incredible how the opposition then now, complete 180, they can smell blood. And those fine margins, they all add up. So I don't think there's anything fundamentally different or a problem for Aberdeen.
False dawn.
They just desperately somehow need to get a victory where they can gain
anyway they can, just to stop the rot.
Yeah.
Build the confidence back up. But they kind of all look out on their feet a wee bit.
Yeah, they do. And I was just looking at the headlines here as we're speaking to see if they've made any additions, because maybe new players coming in really help the dressing room. Aberdeen have signed Danish winger Jeppe Ockels on loan from Preston. So there's one player in.
He knows him. He's worked with him before. I read that. Did he not have him at Elfsborg?
Yes, yeah. Absolutely. And you also wonder, what money the board are going to give Yemi Tillin, because look, what he's done so far, the position in the league. At the start of the season, if you'd mentioned where Aberdeen are in the league, you'd have probably said, okay, take form all out of the equation for a moment. You'd imagine the board are still really happy with what Yemi Tillin has done for the football club, galvanised the fan base. They'll want to back him. There's some money in, Conor Barron money, Michael. Not nearly enough as far as Aberdeen are concerned. Did you see the statement they released about the Conor Barron money? The process as well, how long this dragged on? Do you have any strong thoughts on that?
Well, if you actually just forget about the sum of money that was, decided upon, the process and the length of time shows that invariably costs a lot of money, because there's legal, involvement. Lawyers cost money. Representatives cost money. And
he's speaking from experience here, Alan.
Sounds like it.
Yes,
sounds
unfortunately. Like it. And the longer those things go on, the more that costs. So, invariably, whatever the figure is arrived at for the compensation, you need to then minus whatever it's cost to get to that in the first place. And
what about the sum itself, Michael? What about the sum itself? What about the money that's going to be received?
Well, obviously, if he'd crossed borders, then it would have been a lot less. Yeah. So there is that argument there. I mean, for Conor Barron, if he was under contract, then, I find it difficult to assess these things, because, if he's under contract and he's only got a year left, it's obviously going to be a lot less than if he had 2 years left. He's out of contract, but he's young, so there's some form of compensation. I get that. But there's they've obviously got a way of calculating these things. And
I feel it can be a discussion between clubs.
Yeah, no, well,
can you not just sit?
There was a discussion.
The table?
There was a discussion, but Rangers were obviously offering less than Aberdeen were willing to take. I just think that there should be a bit more clarity on how these things are calculated, so that it doesn't get to a position where it takes, almost 6 months to come to a figure.
Yeah, so basically, it doesn't happen again. If there's 100%. Something clear, this is the script, this is what happened, this is how you work it out. So no argument, no lawyers, no bang, done.
I think the bigger concern at the moment, Michael, and I know we can't get into a massive debate on this really, is partly because of Brexit, by the way, in the situation. It's not new for foreign clubs and English clubs.
Don't start on with that.
We're not doing politics. We're not doing politics. But
I've been down this road before.
Listen, I know. Never bring politics up with Michael Stewart.
Darryl wasn't there, Alan.
I know, but I'm just giving you the heads up.
I've been there, mate, and I would never want to be there again. Let me tell you.
Do you want an interesting story, right?
Go on.
We were in Oslo for the Scotland game against Norway, and Hutch is there with his wife, Kylie, and sat down at night having a drink, and Kylie starts talking about the queue at the airport, and I was like,
no, Darryl. Just before I said we were walking to meet everybody, I said, listen, Kylie, this is the first time I think you've met Michael. I said, whatever you do, don't bring up anything to do with the government, Brexit, nothing. I said, and she was like, all right, as if I'm going to do that anyway. Sat down 10 seconds in, bang, airport queue was horrendous. And he just went kaboom, 2 foot. And that was it for about an hour. I'm sitting looking at like, look what you've done. Look what you've done.
I'd have been in the next bar available in Oslo. You'd have found me in the next bar available. Listen, I can't get into this anyway, but let me just say then, right? Don't need to ask you about Michael. I will say this. It's not new for foreign clubs, English clubs, to come in and take some of our best young talent from the Scottish academies. But I just fear now, and we're already seeing it in places because of Brexit, because the current rules are in place, there's going to be a lot more robbing, if you like, going on. The best young players might never see game time in Scotland. And that's a huge concern because, as you know, some of them go down south. Alan, you know this. Some of those young players make it. Michael, you know it from being a young man down at Manchester United. Some don't always get to the very top. You need to play football, don't you, at some point? And that's the problem. Some of these careers, it feels to me like they could get wasted anyway. I didn't even see the question that went at the bottom of the screen. I was on another one of those rants there. All right, let's leave it at that. Let's move forward. Michael, we talk about the Jambos every week. We've been talking a lot about Dundee United as well, the excellent form they've been in. This was a crucial win for Neil Critchley and Hearts, off the back of beating Motherwell as well, going to Tannadice, winning 1-0. This has been a much, much better week, hasn't it?
Oh, massively. I mean, of course, it's 6 points from 6. It's and by the way, when you think about the league table, the way it's set up, it's much needed because if they hadn't taken the 6 points from 6, you start looking and thinking it could be a really difficult situation. So, beating Motherwell at home, going away to Tannadice and getting 3 points, again, that's got to do the confidence of power of good. And
they deserved it too at Tannadice. Yeah. Look at the game. They actually really deserved it.
Yes, they did. They did. I've got to say Liam Boyce, who has come under a lot of scrutiny and criticism from Hearts supporters. I still feel, again, I go back to the dynamic of the team. If they had greater pace in the team, he could still play a really good role in that number 10 position because he's such an intelligent football player. Whether that comes to pass or not, we don't know. But certainly the last few games he's come in and he's done well. So, well done to him because he's had some terrible injury problems. Yeah. They need to kick on now, though.
Penrice as well. How good's he? I know we speak about him, but he's quality, isn't he?
The assist, by the way, should get a mention as well from Boyce. Alan, you'd have been proud of the assist for that goal there, the big swipe. The big swipe.
Hey, no.
Penrice, good wee player, reminds me of a young Tierney. He does remind me a little bit like that as well. Look, he's had to really fight to get to the top. If you look at James Penrice as well, his career progression. And I spoke to him a few weeks ago. He was talking about why not dream big. I think I said it on this show, talking about wanting to play for Scotland. Look, why not the way he's going at the moment? I'm also really interested to see, Michael, how this link up with Brighton and the other clubs potentially in this Tony Bloom model, how it's going to play out, because Hearts have got one in, haven't they? Winger Elton Kabangu is coming in from Union Saint-Gilloise, so the link-up's obviously already started. What if he plays that well? Does he then move within this triangle, if you like, within this model? I don't know how it's going to work, but regardless, there's going to be many, many clubs watching James Penrice the way he's playing.
I would imagine so, absolutely, because he's as Alan's just spoken about there, he's doing brilliantly. And he really is a standout. I think, over the course of this first half of the season, he's probably the standout player for Hearts. If he continues like that, then even though left back's obviously a very strong position for the national team, he's going to be knocking on the door. And, I would imagine there'll be clubs sniffing about, looking at, potentially making bids for him as well. He's at a great age. And Hearts have really, been able to get the best out of him at the moment in a team that have effectively been struggling. So hopefully if the team start doing better as well, it's only going to benefit Penrice.
Yeah. Maybe international call-ups out, maybe not when there's a huge playoff game ahead, but maybe early in a group phase, maybe there's a place for him in there. Do you think he can get to that level?
Look, I think so. I mean, there's obviously competition. You know how strong it is at left back for Scotland at this moment in time. Tierney's situation, Greg Taylor's there himself. I think if he continues to play and continue to play the way that he is at this moment in time, you can't not see that as a manager. I mean, you see how much he gives and offers to that team. So, yeah, I mean, keep doing what you're doing. And I think he's got all the ability to do it.
Yeah, and he's done it on the European stage as well. He was excellent in some of those games for Hearts in Europe, so he's proving he can do it at any level at the moment. Dundee United look excellent in the derby, good comeback win. against Dundee. So it's only a slight setback for them. Just one final one on Hearts. Jamie McCart came off the bench yesterday, Michael. Do you think he's a good signing? Good addition?
The first thing I've got to say on that is I've got a serious concern yet again about the administrative level at Hearts. A 4.5-year deal just baffles me.
Analytics said yes.
Great, brilliant.
Numbers must have been good.
Aye.
On the supercomputer.
If you think about it, right, he's 27 now. He's been down south for a number of years. Who hands out a 4.5-year deal at that stage of career?
Oh, you'd snap his arm off. Imagine getting offered that. You'd be buzzing, wouldn't you?
Exactly. You do that.
Is he not in the prime of his career?
Max, you would get 3. I think at 27. Take you 30, reassess it, and then go from there.
So you do that for younger players because you're protecting your asset. At that stage, you don't hand out a 4.5-year deal. It just is mind-boggling. Whether he is good or whether he is a dud at Hearts, you don't hand out a 4.5-year deal. And my concern is who's negotiating contracts now? Because that, to me, smacks of agents being able to dictate what's going on. And that's a concern. In terms of just...
Who is doing it? Is it Graham Jones?
Well, if it is, what experience has Graham Jones got of negotiating a contract? I would imagine 0.
You're good with the lawyers. Are you putting yourself forward here?
He would just be giving out 1-year deals to everybody. Right, come back, see me in a year. There's a year. There's a year.
Anyone else. Nobody would sign.
But in terms of as a player, I mean, I think it looks like, Kai Rose will be away to the MLS, so they're looking at, a replacement for that left-sided centre-half. Certainly, 3-4 years ago when he was at St Johnstone, he would have been in that category where you'd be looking and going, definitely take a punt on him. Not seen enough of him in the last couple of years to say good, bad or indifferent. But from 3 or 4 years ago, I would say that's a sensible signing. Yes. I wouldn't be doing it on a 4.5-year deal, though.
I think he's made that clear, Alan. He thinks that's...
He's made that very clear. Very, very clear. And I wouldn't like to come to him for a new deal, if I'm totally honest. But I get what you're saying. See at 27, even though you need to remember, seeing you start getting to 30, there's no sell-on value. Like, you can't just go and sell him for a few... You can't make that money back because he's aged then. So what you would do is give him 3 years, which I think is acceptable. It's 27. And then you reassess it then, moving forward.
Okay, let's go on to St Johnstone, Dundee. 3-1 win on the road for Dundee. What a brilliant response, by the way, to losing the derby.
St Johnstone, man.
The disappointment... We'll get to St Johnstone, don't you worry, some of this defending. The disappointment of losing the derby, though, Michael, and then coming back and, the very next game, another Tayside derby, to go and score 3 goals like this, exactly what Tony Docherty would have wanted.
Oh, absolutely. He'll have been delighted that he was coming up against St Johnstone, mind you, because, dearie me, I mean,
it's laughable.
It's getting to the stage where it's just quite ludicrous. And they're finding themselves, caught adrift at the bottom of the table, and I don't really see how they're going to be able to close the gap. For Dundee, yes, massive win, needed it. It keeps them in that, mid-table sort of hunt for top 6. And the story for that game is just that the wheels are, continuing to fall off for St Johnstone.
I think they've went off and they're just running alongside the car.
Well, Valakari, I think he made a double sub after 26 minutes when there were 3 goals down. So at the moment, he's obviously searching for answers. I think you've both mentioned as well the setup of the team because he loves to play attacking football. The 3 strikers were in there again, 3 out-and-out attackers, if you like. Alan, is there a major balance problem and is it clear to see? And if so, why has it not been addressed?
Look, see for me, right, he wants to play football. You see him, he wants possession of the ball. He wants to go forward. He wants to attack. He wants to make opportunities. He's got 3 strikers on the pitch. No, you're conceding 1 million goals. How about defensively be strong, be hard to beat and go from there? Start with that. Like, I understand that he wants to play, but it's not the time. You're 8 points adrift at the bottom and you're leaking goals for fun. After 20 minutes or whatever it is, you're 3-0 down. No wonder he made subs, which tells me it was wrong to begin with, and it has been for a number of weeks. So, look, that has to change. That's schoolboy stuff.
The biggest problem, Michael, is when you look at the league table, there's a big gap there. And you know teams have turned around gaps like that before, but it's when you look above them and who's there. And you look at teams and you think, well, they're going to pick up points soon. And even teams like Ross County will come to a second, who a few weeks ago everyone was saying, well, they're going to be in trouble this season. Their form has been fantastic all of a sudden on the road. So I think it's the team, it's the gap, it's the teams above them. Can they claw that kind of gap back? Or do you already see this being endgame stuff?
Unfortunately, I don't see them clawing it back. I don't see how, they're... I was talking about the fact that 8 points. Where are they gaining 8 points? And that's on Hearts. Now you can only. There's no way they're going to gain 8 more points than Hearts over the course of the season. Now I know there's a few other teams that are,
but Hearts who are getting stronger.
Yeah, that's my point.
Yeah.
And then Ross County, who hadn't won a game away from home for like 15 months, have now just like smashed out 3. And you're just like, well,
you'd never see St Johnstone doing that, in my opinion. I can't see them really winning at home, to be honest. Never mind going on the road and picking up points. But to be supporting that team at this moment in time, you would be pulling your hair out with the defence. Like as a team, I'm not just picking out the back four or the goalkeeper. I just think as a team, and Tony Dock spoke about it, how they had a game plan. Allow them to have possession. Allow them to come forward and attack us, and then we'll just hit them in the break bang goal, and it's done.
Yeah.
Okay, Michael, we'll get to the last game then. We've just mentioned, aforementioned Ross County, another win on the road. And again, watching the highlights, the extended highlights of this match, you would say they deserved it. The way they set up, the way they've played here. They had other opportunities in the match. I think that's Randall going close, great save there. And they get the goal late in the day. But the recent wins at Pittodrie, prior to that, I think a really convincing win was at Dundee. I think it was prior to the previous away game. I mean, this looks like this is kind of not just short-term stuff. This is a team that could continue to progress.
Well, they're certainly riding the crest of a wave away from home at the moment. I don't have any serious concerns for Ross County, especially at home. They're going to pick. So even if that's all the games they win away from home this season, it's probably enough. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. For them to remain safe, because I do think their home form will see them through over the course of the season, and they've got enough about them. When you look at the balance of the team, Jordan White's always a threat. He's always a nuisance to opponents at the top end of the park. Ronan Hale will get goals, and defensively, we saw it right at the start of the season. Akil Wright, Lapata, these are guys that can, they can defend. They've got a bit about them. St Johnstone just don't have that same wherewithal. Defensively, not great. And you look at, decision that was made in the summer to, whether Liam Gordon was wanting to go or whether the contract was offered or not, it came to the stage where he was off skate. Liam Gordon, Ryan McGowan, Andrew Considine obviously retired. I just think that it's difficult to allow or let 3 experienced defenders like that to go at once, and they've not been replaced. You really needed to be keeping some of them, potentially 2 of them, and they've not been able to replace well enough, and they're paying the price because defensively that is their Achilles heel right now.
Ryan McGowan, I think, was speaking at the weekend, said they nearly had Craig Gordon during the summer. Maybe I'll just get a quick question in a second. But Rambo's point at the bottom, I think it was Rambo Kelly.
It's spot on.
He's talking about. Look, they beat St Mirren prior. They had a really good win against Aberdeen 4-0 recently. They are a bit hot and cold, though, aren't they, Alan?
That's exactly what it is. Inconsistency. I mean, the Aberdeen game, I thought they were excellent. St Mirren, like you said, they just won, and then you just expect them to be good at home. And Derek McKenna said it as well. He thought they were flat. That's how they looked. Ross County deserved to win, but they need to be consistent in their performances. He said it would come after the European exertions and everything that happened, but we're just not quite seeing it at this moment in time. When I see a Kelly fixture, I genuinely, they can either be great or bang average. It's just, there's no really in between, and it's something they need to fix at this moment in time.
Yeah. Okay, Craig Gordon, I just mentioned him because there was talk about maybe a summer offer had come from St Johnstone. He made a couple of brilliant saves late in the Motherwell game to ensure Hearts got 3 points. But there have been some fans recently questioning his distribution and coming for balls from corners and set pieces and stuff like that, Michael. But he's
You
still
know-
a great shot stopper. So,
but
go on,
Daryl-
Michael. Give me your view, and would you give him a new contract? Would you give him an extension? Since you're giving the deals out now at Tynecastle.
I wouldn't even hesitate. No hesitation. His reflexes and reactions have not diminished at all. Cross balls and kicking have never been Craig's strength. They've never been part of his game that you've went, oh, he's brilliant at, cross balls and he's great with the ball at his feet. And by the way, I wouldn't even be looking at things in the last sort of 6 months and say that he's had numerous howlers in terms of cross balls and balls at his feet. He's not. He got so much criticism after Ross County for the 99th minute goal. But see that ball into the box. I don't really think you can have a terrible goal at him. He doesn't know. He's got a defender that's probably about a foot in front of him. He's always.
He actually thinks somebody's going to get a nick. He's spreading himself at the start because you know how he plays it. He spreads himself, and that's what I think.
Did it? Just didn't look good.
Of course not.
Like that.
It didn't. But if you're somebody that's assessing the situation, you know anything about the game, you're not getting caught up in the emotion of, we've just lost the 99th minute goal. That's his fault. I'm not giving him a new deal. You're looking at the fundamentals and you go, actually, he's not done anything really wrong there. And he's still a top-class keeper. And his reactions and reflexes have not diminished at all. Unequivocally, he's getting a new deal.
Okay, there's the lawyer there that Michael knows well, obviously doing the deals, and Graham Jones has had a bit from Michael this week as well on the social club. Alan, final word to you. Is it a penalty at Easter Road yet, Al? Right or wrong?
You've just been setting me up for it, haven't you? Well, if it was me, I'd be looking for a penalty. That's what I can say.
Good, there you go.
He's a good, honest lad, Darryl. Unlike Scott, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, listen, I don't even know Scott. That's not one of my 1, 2, 3 brothers. And that is the truth. None of them are called Scott. That is the truth. But it's very kind of him. Very kind. Guys, thank you very much. Can't believe we didn't even have an extra guest. We've almost got to an hour. We're back next Monday on the Social Club. Alan, Michael, thank you very much. We will see you soon.
Catch you later.
The Scottish Football Social Club is brought to you by McBookie.com. Take a lookie at McBookie today.